They were water babies, born 183 years and more than 3,000 miles apart, but water babies just the same. Neither of them chose it. 24th of November, 1815, Bamborough on the Northumberland coast. Harboured in the safety of her grandfather's sea-scented cottage, a baby is born. Grace. 3 weeks old, bobbing like driftwood on the waves, she is taken home, across the water, to a lighthouse on the Farne Islands. 5th of March, 1998. Daraa, south of Damascus, Syria, more than 50 miles from the sea. Plunging into the heart of a family of swimmers, a baby is born. Yusra. She swims before she can walk, lulled by the lapping of the warm, chlorinated water under the filtered pool lights. Grace grows among the wilds of the rocks, the 7th of 9 sturdy siblings, with seaweed and shells for toys. As a child, she charms the island's eider ducks, and puffins pilfer her kitchen for scraps. She knows what it is to lean into the wind, and she knows the weight of the sun on her back. In the tall, round tower of the lighthouse, her bedroom lies 3 stories high. And she knows the sea and its shifting spirit, from the ruffled white-tipped waves to the moon-silvered mill pond, the boundless, mesmerizing early morning deep, and the savage fury of the storm unleashed. Sea salt crusts her windows. Yusra grows under discipline and direction, the second of 2 swimming sisters, her muscles stretching and strong. As a child, she is inspired by the Olympics and Michael Phelps, and the idea that you can train your way into being a hero. She knows what it is to fix her eyes on the prize, and she knows the weight of expectation on her back. In her bedroom, she dreams of gold. And at 12, she swims in the sea in a race, and the fathoms that hold her are mysterious and deep, and she longs for the safety of shore. 7th of September, 1838. Grace is 22. It is hard to sleep through the ire of the storm. It flings furious handfuls of wind and wave. It surrounds the lighthouse. At 4:45, she goes to her window, and in the dim, dawning half-light, she sees the ghost of a ship on the big Harkar rock. She runs to the telescope to search for survivors. Half of the ship is missing. 12th of August, 2015. Yusra is 17. It is hard to sleep through the barrel bombs and the mortar fire. Death is random and ever-present. A family on the move in pursuit of safety. Home no longer exists. Weeks earlier, a bomb fell on the pool where she was training. Serendipity decided it would not explode. Yusra and her sister Sarah say goodbye to their mother and younger sister and board a plane from Syria to Beirut via Istanbul. A part of them is left behind. Grace and her father watch the rocks as the rising sun battles to send light through the storm. At 7 o'clock, behind the heave of the waves, they see movement. Grace watches her father as he stares out to sea. The mainland is lost. There will be no lifeboat launched. They are the only ones who can help. Yusra and Sarah hear tales of robbery, beatings by border guards, and broken limbs, and decide to go to Europe by boat. Everyone is frightened of the sea, but they are Mardinis, and they can swim. Briefly, they hold more money than they have ever seen in their lives. Then they hand it over to the smugglers in return for their space on an impossibly full 4-foot inflatable rubber dinghy. It sits low in the water, the sea playfully threatening to spill over the sides. Grace and her father launch their 21-foot, 4-man Northumbrian Coble rowing boat. Its flat bottom and high sides are designed to travel through shallow waters and withstand the dangerous North Sea waves. But still they must row a careful, circuitous mile to reach the big Harcar safely. The boat is heavy, and it pitches in the swell. The muscles in Grace's arms strain. She is drenched. She can see the wreck from the corner of her eye. Yusra's dinghy launches through the waves. The smuggler on board hands control of the small outboard motor to an Afghan passenger, and then he jumps out of the boat and leaves them. The Afghan tries to navigate the rolling waves. The dinghy rises and falls with the swell. The ocean surge hits Yusra full in the back, flooding into the boat. She takes off her glasses. The other passengers blur. There are children among them. No one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. As they near the rock, Grace sees there are 9 who have survived, a woman and 8 men. Her father will have to jump onto the rock to check them over. Grace nods. She takes both oars and holds the 4-man boat steady, keeping close to the rock without running aground. Her father jumps to join the survivors. She is adrift. Her fear comes in waves, one small surge after another. The boat rides each and every one. 15 minutes out, the motor on Yusra's boat cuts out. Silence. Then a turmoil of prayer as the Afghan pulls the cord. The sea pitches beneath them. She grips the rope at the edge of the dinghy. It cuts into her hand. Water crashes over them, pooling in the bottom of the boat. Mohammed, a fellow passenger, climbs over the side and into the sea, clutching onto the rope while lightening the load. He cannot swim. Her sister Sarah follows. Yusra puts her glasses on another passenger's lap. She will not stand by and watch. Her sister tells her to stay in the boat as Yusra jumps into the ocean. Grace holds her nerve and the boat while the survivors board. The woman, Mrs. Dawson, lost both her children to the storm. They are no longer living, yet Grace holds the boat for them. Her father helps Mrs. Dawson and 4 men, 1 badly injured, onto the Coble. The moment hangs, tense, full, interminable, and then they are aboard. Grace is exhausted. Her father and the 3 uninjured men take the oars. She takes Mrs. Dawson's hands. In the water, Yusra treads. One of them has phone signal and calls the Greek authorities. They are told to turn back. The Turkish Coast Guard doesn't answer. So the man rings his father. We're stuck in the sea and our boat is broken. Please post our coordinates on Facebook and ask for help. Yusra thinks of her mother. Salt water fills her mouth, her nose, her eyes with every swell. Her fingers wrinkle. Another dinghy sails past. There's room for more passengers on it. They call for help, but it sails on by. Yusra has had enough. Back on the island, Grace helps Mrs. Dawson to the lighthouse kitchen, her father following with the injured man. Once they are settled, he returns to the Coble with 2 of the surviving crew, returning to the rock to rescue the remaining 4 men. Grace need not row again. Instead, she cares for Mrs. Dawson. Yusra's legs are numb. Her muscles are seizing, but she kicks them nonetheless. Sarah does the same, out of sight on the other side of the boat. They are Mardinis, and they swim. No one will die on their watch. The wind blows her freezing hair against her face. A voice in her head tells her they won't survive. And through the pitch and the swell and the deep, she keeps on going. Just 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. And 5 more. After more than 3 hours in the freezing water, she hears the engine choke to life. Yusra and her sister climb back on board. She is exhausted. By the time they reach the shallows, Sarah is back in the sea, tugging the dinghy to safety. They are Mardinis, and they swim. Grace's name splashes onto front pages, spreading throughout Victorian England. She is a reluctant heroine. Artists paint her. She receives gifts and letters. People request a lock of her hair. Just 4 years later, in April 1842, Grace develops tuberculosis. She returns to the mainland and dies where she was born, in Bamborough, on the 20th of October, 1842, aged 26. But her story remains. And Yusra? Yusra got back in the water. On the 6th of August 2016, on the first day of the Rio Olympic Games, she swims in the Olympic pool as part of the first ever refugee Olympic team. She wins her heat in the 100-meter butterfly. She is a Goodwill ambassador for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And her story appears in the book of Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. They were water babies, born 183 years and more than 3,000 miles apart. But water babies just the same. And as the sun rises and sets over the different seas that they conquered, the waves are tinged with gold.